Okay. So shall we start, sir?
Yeah, start.
Fine.
No, 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 no.
So
Sir, introduce. Dinesh Jain ji introduce
I,
the all this.
I, C.A. Dinesh Jain, Chairman, Mansoor Branch of CIRC of ICI, on behalf of the Professional Skill Enrichment Committee, ICI, welcome all the participants in today's webinar on the power of communication for chartered accountants. I welcome the today's resources person, C.A. Mohit Ji Gupta, and the event enabler from our Mansoor Branch of CIRC of ICI, and other person over here. I welcome all, and I now request CA Arpit Mehta, our member, Mansoor Branch of the ICI, for introduction of a speaker. CA Arpit Mehta.
Good morning, sir. It's very honored to introduce CA Mohit Gupta ji. CA Mohit Gupta ji, who is a fellow chartered accountant and LLB rank holder, is a professional corporate trainer, motivational speaker, ex-qualified merchant navy officer, state level job, judo player, bronze medalist, a filmmaker, novelist, theater director, life coach, meditation and spiritual guru, business coach and sales guru. After providing consulting services in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and Indian Railways, he raised the raft to guide Indian youths and help them to achieve their life goals by delivering sessions on motivation, self-analysis, time management, and spiritual awakening. Mohit Gupta ji travels to different cities for his session to guide the people from different backgrounds and different cultures. Now I request my CA Mohit Gupta ji to hand over and start.
okay, thank you, Arpit ji. Thank you, Sambit ji. Thank you, Dinesh sir, and good morning, everyone. This is a wonderful opportunity given to me by the Sambit sir for speaking over the session of the subject that is the world's most powerful weapon, that is the communication. Before starting this session, communication, I would like to highlight that what is the need of this session. Setting this off against each other, then like uh, before starting the session, I repeat again, I would like to highlight the need of this session. What is the need of this session, which is on the communication? What is the need? Why the communication, why this skill is so important and everyone should be attend this seminar? First of all, we would like to highlight upon that. See, uh, there are lots of things, there are lots of examples. Many of our guys, many of the CAs, many of the MBAs are in industry, whether they are into the job, whether they are into the practice. I think everyone will be agree on this thing that every CA, whether he is in to the job, whether he is into the practice, they would be like to reach the apex. If they are into the job, they will be like to go for such position like CEO, CFO of such companies where they are working at all. And if they are into the practice, then they will surely would like to see their firms, whether it is in proprietorship or whether they're into the partnership firms. They will like to see their firms on the apex, like into the big four, right? So this is a very common thing. Like everyone want a apex destination, a successful destination, but what is the one common thing which is so common among all the corporate leader? Like as we discussed, everyone want to be a world leader, everyone want to be a corporate leader. What is the common thing between all the leader? That is their communication. That is the need of the communication, right? So if you want to be a successful in your life, whether you are into talking about in monetary terms, whether you are talking about into the corporate sector, whether you are talking about some other sector like a business or something your own practice, there is one very useful skill, that is the communication, right? So without the communication, your destination, your dreaming may be on the very far side, right? So that is a need. Now, second thing, when we are talking about like improving our communication, I always saying that communication is a such kind of the weapon. When you are sharpen the weapon, there is a still probable chances to improve your communication furthermore, right? And when you are improving your communication, you are referring so many texts, you are referring so many books, you are referring so many authors, but there is one author, there is one name which can we say like he is the guru of all the current authors which are writing the stuff on the communication, and the name is the Dale Carnegie. I also personally used to read his book, and the way of his teaching, the way of his writing is like he gives the many example on the communication and emphasize the communication in many terms. So first of all, before start, I would like to highlight the need of the communication. Why I'm calling the communication is the world's most powerful weapon. One way of the communication has the power which can start the battle between the two countries and maybe the result of the third world war, right? And one side of the communication maybe is like which can reflect your personality as a peace symbol, as a piece of as a symbol of peace, right? So on the darker side, communication may be used as a weapon. On the lighter side, a communication may be used as a rose. If we are talking about the communication, the power of communication, if the darker leader holds the communication weapon, then it can lead into the many deaths, whether they are related to the Second World War and relatable to the Hitler, Adolf Hitler, right? So it is the power of the communication. It is the power of the communication that by his some few words, many soldiers, many people just fall into the battle and start the Second World War. And on the lighter mode, if we are talking about the communication as a peace, if we are talking about the communication as a roses, then communication has a power which can spread the peace and love. And there is a one word called ahimsa, right? That can make a very small and darker guy and make him the world famous, which is known as Mahatma Gandhi or Subhash Chandra Bose, right? They are lead their communication without like if we are talking about the Mahatma Gandhi, without the holding the weapon, just by the communication, many of the lakhs of the people just following him on the path of this term ahimsa, and it lead for the independence of such a big nation like India. So this is the power of the communication. It can lead into the Second World War or the Third World War or the Fourth World War as the time knows. And on the other hand, communication can also be used as a most powerful weapon without holding the guns in their hand, and can lead to the independence for the biggest democratic country of the world. So this is the power of the communication. Second thing, like on the other side, I also highlight what is the need of the communication for the corporate leader. Like everyone, we are agreeing that without communication, it is look like a very not possible or impossible that we are very far from our dream to be a corporate leader, whether we are into the job or into our practice. So that is the communication which can convert our dream into the reality. Right now, there is the one question might be in our mind that how we can improve our communication, and the today's session might be just the starting point. First of all, before improving our communication, we have to understand first, like, what is the communication? I'm asking some of you guys, or might be all of you guys, can answer that question. Like, what is the communication? Is it a communication if I just call, if I just receive a call from my wife and she says, when you are coming to our home at the evening, please bring some kind of the vegetables to our home and just drop a call. Is this a communication? I am asking you. Please participate. Please answer, any one of you. Is this a communication? If someone dials someone contact number and just throw his words on the other one's ears and just drop their call, is this a communication? Please, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. If you are find this one-side communication can be a type of the communication, then what is the meaning of dictation? Right? So there is a slightly difference. There is a slightly difference. If you are calling someone into your cabin, or if you are calling someone on their contact notebook and dial their number and just express your words only without the listening them to and without the confirmation that whether they are understanding the right subject or not. Communication cannot be done in a proper manner, right? And if we are just calling someone in our cabin and saying like, please note down what I am saying to you, that is not the communication. World is changing. We are dealing with the Gen Zs. We are dealing with those guys. We are dealing with those clients, those articles, those juniors, those colleagues who might be the Gen Zs. Gen Zs like who are born after the sun 2000, right? After 2000, right? So they want every explanation. They want every because. They want every reason, right? What I'm saying to them, what I'm conveying to them, they want every explanation behind that, right? So, if we are dealing with this kind of generation, then we have to improve our communication too, because they are those pillars on which back we are going to generate our new Burj Khalifa might be, who leads to the new height into the corporate sector, right? So if we are dealing with such employees who want every explanation, we need proper two-way or three-way communication. But we can't do like that just to express our opinion and saying them just shut your mouth and go away. We can't do that, right? So for a better communication, we need we need the first thing, that communication start with this pattern which you might see on the screen, right? There is one person who is a message sender, right? Who is a message sender, and the second one who is the message receiver. My communication can't be a successful communication until I confirm that my words just not pass by their like only ears. My communication will be successful only when my words will be observed by their mind, by their conscious mind, right? Only then I can say my communication is successful, right? And for this pattern, like we can say one communicator, one receiver, and when we are sending some messages to the receiver, it is our responsibility too that we have to take the feedback of the listener, whether they understood our message or not, right? So that is the first thing which we have to note down in our mind. Like we have to remove the word from our dictionary, dictation, right? You can't dictate someone, you can't sing only your things, and without listening them, you can't expect the successful result of the thing which are going on in that message, right? Now, the second thing, how we can start, how we can initiate a successful communication. Whether it is a situation when I am thinking about something and just wear some words and throw the words from my mouth and that's it. Is that a communication? No. Or should I observe my thoughts first of all? Should I observe my things first of all and understand what I need to ask, what I need to start, what I need to initiate, how to initiate my conversation? See, there are many people who are just talking every day, but less of the guys are very concerned about the words when they are talking. But on the other side, there are few people, they are talking very less, but the audience want to hear them because their words are like a golden moment. You know, this world, or specifically I can say this democratic country, run on the four pillar, and one pillar is the media, news media. News media, which is considered as the most powerful pillar. You know why? Because media has the power to ask questions, and one powerful question, communication of one powerful question, can lead the night into the sunrise. One powerful question can remove the ruling party of this democratic nation. So that is the power of question, right? So for initiating the communication, we also understand few elements, and one of that is the question. Question which is not asked by the other only, but it includes those questions too, which we are trying to find in ourselves, which we are using for the self analysis, which we are using to filter our communication only, right? So we have to question ourselves first before we start the communication, before we start any conversation, right? And how can we create a powerful question to initiate a powerful conversation to make that a powerful communication? If we are not a good listener, then we cannot be a good communicator too. See, for an example, if I am attending some seminar on which a speaker are saying many things on the communication, and I ask the few questions which already answered by the speaker earlier, then what will happen? I will probably sound very childish. I would like to present my behavior as a childish behavior because I was not listening properly and asked some stupid question again and again, which answered by the speaker earlier. Many people in many seminar, I observe that they have many good question in their heart, but they are uh, some kind of fear in their mind that if I'm asking such question, what how will audience react to those questions? You know why? Because somewhere they are not properly listen to the speaker, they are not properly understand that evening, right? So before asking the question on the given subject, we have to have some patience, we have to listen them first, then only we have to convert our thoughts into the powerful question. Now let us come to our main topic of the day: how to improve our communication. Till now, we understand two powerful elements. The first one is before asking any question, before start any communication, just observe your thoughts. Just ask question from yourself only. Just make a self quick analysis on your thought and make a good filtration to ask a very fluent and good questions. And before that, before asking the question, we have to be a good listener. We have to be a good listener. We don't have to only listen, but we also have doing a good active listening. Like, see, sometime when you fall into the conversation with someone who is not belongs to the your experience, who is not belong to your field, who doesn't belongs to the knowledge you have, right? And sometime when we fall into the conversation accidentally by such kind of guys, right? Then we start thinking like, okay, let him speak, and I will just scroll the YouTube channel, or I will just scroll my WhatsApp messages, right? Which are probably not so relevant, but very relevant at that time because we have to just pass that time, right? Will you consider that listening is active listening? Answer is no. When you are listening to someone, when you are listening someone, listen them for their values, listen them for their assumptions, right? Without listening them, active listening them, we can't frame our powerful questions. We can't frame, right? So let us move to our this topic, like 7 C's of the effective communication. How we can now, we have to understand, like, we don't have to learn the communication only. We have to learn about the effective communication. Like I mentioned earlier, communication is a most powerful weapon, but we have to sharp this weapon every day by our learning. So there are 7 C's to make our weapon of communication so sharpened by this effective method. And the first one is completeness. Completeness. First C stands for the completeness. Completeness, like providing all necessary information for the clear understanding and the informed decision. See, if you are communicating with someone and you have some thought like your listener has already a complete information about the subject on which you are talking to, but even if I have such kind of sense like my listener have a full knowledge about the subject on which I'm talking to, then also it is your responsibility to confirm the subject on which you are talking with him or her, right? Without completing your message, without completing your information, without completing your subject, you cannot blame to the listener in which sense he or she understand what you are talking about. So this is my primary responsibility. Whether I'm in so hurry, whether I'm in so hustle, it is my primary responsibility that I have to ask, like, on which subject you are understanding my words, on which subject you are understanding my thoughts. It is my primary responsibility because I am the responsible for the starting this communication. I am responsible. I am that responsible guy who initiate this conversation. So this is my primary responsibility to understand whether the listener, whether the audience has on the same page on which I am talking to, right? So you might be connect these kind of circumstances to your previous experience, might be some time you face that. On the second thing, clearness, ensuring the message is easily understood without the ambiguity or confusion. Let me share with you a good example of my childhood. Once I was going to the Mercedes showroom with my childhood friend, and there is a red color Mercedes standing on a rotating stage, and we both just look at them, and there were few sales girls who showcased those Mercedes cars. And I was starting the conversation with my friend, like how beautiful it is. And my friend also start daydreaming about a sales girl. When I was talking about the car, he was daydreaming about the sales girl who was showcase that car. And I start conversation without understanding in which sense my dear friend understand my thoughts. And I continuing with my communication. I started the communication with how beautiful it is in red color. And he also shared his thought. Yes, obviously. One day I'll take this with me. And when I countered him, like regarding which thing he is talking about, so he asked me that you are starting this conversation. Now, first of all, you tell me regarding the same. And I told him that I'm talking about the beautiful red color car, Mercedes car, for which we are here. And suddenly he understand his mistake, which might be probably initiated by me because I was not make him clear on which topic I am starting the conversation. So he understand in a wrong way. So as soon as he understand like on which topic I am talking about, so he says, okay, actually I was no idea. I was no have any idea like on which you are talking about. Sorry. So this is a blender mistake, but it was initiating by me only. I was the responsible. Further, for your clearness, I am just saying one thing that this is not a real example. This is just a fictionary example, right? So, but what is the learning in our life? In our life, many times in our life, many times there are many things going to happen. We starting the conversation in some sense, but it ends into the another sense. It is misguided by something very weird thing in between. Why? Because when we initiate our message, we didn't complete our subject. We didn't clear the theme of our message. We didn't clear our intention. We didn't clear our thought. That is a thing. Now, let's move to the another C, courtesy. Another C that stands for courtesy. Courtesy means showing respect, politeness, and professionalism in interaction with the others. Another example for you guys. One day, my friend was getting married with someone in Nepal. My friend was from Nepal. He was getting married in Nepal, and he told me to attend the marriage, but I was in Bangalore for some work. And I was I was just thinking, like when he was getting married, then I will surprise after such kind of like many other things which are happen after the marriage rituals. So I was just calling him. According to me, it was like 9 p.m. at night. But in Nepal, there are few hours later or sooner, some kind of time gap. So I was calling him at night 9 p.m. and just having thought like he was having some fun with his cousins and all. But in Nepal, there are few time gap, and I was just calling him again and again and again and again, and he was not receiving the call. And I was thinking that at this time his marriage might be completed, the rituals. Then why he didn't answer my call? And I was not thinking. I was not have any idea that the timeline of the Nepal is slightly different from the Bangalore in India, right? So what I do in that case, I ignore his privacy. I didn't respect his privacy, right? And for your information, again, this is another a fictional example. It is not related to any practical one. So, but what is the learning in that case? We have to show the respect. We have to show the courtesy. We have to show the politeness in our conversation. In our conversation. That is the demand of the professionalism while we interact with them. If we are didn't following this C, which is the courtesy, then sorry, but the audience, the listener will not respond to your message, will not respond to your communication so impactfully, so effectively. Right? So I hope this one also be remembered by us. Now, let us move to our second one, next one, that is the correctness. Another C for the effective communication is the correctness. Sometime before, I observed a man while I was traveling to the Maharashtra, and that guy who just sits in front of me on another seat, he was speaking in Marathi language, in Maharashtrian. And when I was asking that, are you from Maharashtra? So he told me that he's from Bihar. And that guy is very senior to me, might be at the age of the 50 and all. And he belongs to some pharmaceutical sector background. And but he was fluent. He was speaking in Maharashtrian language very fluently. But sometimes he found himself in some kind of the mistake while pronouncing some Maharashtrian words when he was in the conversation with a Maharashtrian guy who just sit next to him. And I would just look at the face of that Maharashtrian guy who was accidentally fall into the conversation in that guy who is from Bihar, who was from Bihar, but speaking fluently in Maharashtrian language. And one time I just noticed that the guy who was originally from Maharashtra get offended. get offended, and they both fight with each other on some kind of phrase which might be pronounced wrong, or which might be understand wrong. So I was just thinking that why it has happened. Then I noticed that the guy who was from Bihar but tried to speak in Maharashtrian so fluently, he was doing some very small mistakes in pronouncing some Maharashtrian words. So yeah, but that the question, the about the guy, that if he's from Bihar, then what is the need of speak in Maharashtrian? And probably I was thinking that probably that guy who was from Bihar talking about some common subject, but in Maharashtrian, to improve his personal image in front of that Maharashtrian guy. So, in the sense of achieving some good, respectable image in the view of the Maharashtrian guy, he loses his own respect because he was unable to pronounce the every word of the Maharashtrian in a good sense in which they should be, right? So sometime it also happened with us. Sometime it also happened with us when we are on the sake of improving our image or build our image or our brand image. If we are talking in some other language to improve our image or our brand image in the view of the other person who might be relatable to that place only, right? But in that case, we have to understand, if we are talking in their language only, we have to pronounce every word with correctness. We have to ensure the accuracy in grammar, in their pronunciation, in the spelling, in the punctuation. We have to be very formal about that. We have to be very sincere about that. See, we can't just ignore, we can't just mocking the sense of some language, because every language is denote the ritual, every language is denote the culture, every language have some feeling which might have in the heart of those local one who are related to that language, right? So if we choose this path to improve our image or our brand image in the another person, in another person view, right? So we have to take it very seriously, and we have to pronounce that language in a very correct manner. Okay, now let's move to the another C, that is the concreteness. Concreteness. What is concreteness now? Using the specific facts and evidence for the credibility and believability. Like, it is very common in today's world, like we are dealing in the social media. We are dealing in a social media where we get the many messages while we are just picking up our phone in the morning and see the many groups we are joined as a member, whether deliberately or whether coincidentally or by adding some our close relatives. So while we entered into those conversation and we found such kind of messages, we are uh, we are not feeling very comfortable with that message, but some messages which just forwarded into the some and all, which is not verified at all, right? And some of few people just forwarded those unverified messages to the another group, right? See, we have to understand, like, before speaking on any topic, before forwarding any message, before communicating anything to the another guy or to the audience, we have to make sure in ourselves first to use this technique which is called the concreteness. Don't think in a very loose manner, like if you are just forward the forwarded messages to you by accidentally or deliberately. Don't think that if you are just forwarding those messages, if you are forwarding those messages, you have no responsibility. Don't think about that. Don't think like that, right? When you are forwarding some messages in a very fluent way, you are equally responsible to spread such kind of messages as a rumor, right? So you have two options only. Like, first one, don't communicate such things which are not verified at all by yourself only. By yourself only, right? So first option, don't communicate, don't stand your building over such pillars which are not raised by you, right? And second option, if you would like to forward it such messages, then you have to verify those first. See, we are in today's era are dealing with many advanced things. Like you might be heard about the very modern technique which is known as the artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. There are lots of guys. There are lots of guys. Might be I pronounce the name not in a correct manner. Like there is a celebrity. She's a girl. Um, like she's from the movie of like I don't know, might be in Animal, right? So she is work against the Ranbir Kapoor in movie Animal. I'm talking about that girl only. So she faced a video in which she saw herself, and she was like a semi nude in that video, and she was trolled on social media very badly for that kind of dress which she weared in that video. But unfortunately, she was not found herself actually in that video. She was recorded by some other girl, and artificial by using the technique of artificial intelligence. Her face were replaced by that girl only, right? But what happened to such celebrity? This video forwarded and spreaded by many people in the society. And as a result, her image is destroyed, right? And when she complained in the court, and many of the guys who spread such kind of rumor were found guilty by the court and punished later, right? So what happened in that case? Don't be a part of such kind of spread until you found it is very useful to spread it, but after the verification only, right? So in today's world where the time has come when the modern technique getting the some another kind of the advanced technique like artificial intelligence, we have to very aware about that. Don't spread any message, don't communicate any information without the verification. And that thing is called the concreteness. Without using the specific fact, without using the evidence of the credibility and believability, don't do that. Otherwise, you can find yourself in a hustle. You can find your image as a dirty one. Okay, let's move to the another C that stand for the conciseness. What is the conciseness? Conciseness is like, see, just imagine what if I just called you in my cabin and I choose to convey my message in a very long way, right? Like, for an example, if many of you or some of you like to hear someone or would like to read some novels, do you like so much to read about the first few pages which is written about the introduction, index and all, and the prologues and everything? Do you find it so interesting, or it is just an information? Okay. Might be you found it interesting while you are reading some kind of the novel of your favorite author. Let's take in another example. While we are talking about some kind of a syllabus, while we are talking about of some kind of a course book, subject book, how many of us found so interesting the introduction part and the prologue part, which introduced in the starting of that course book or subject book? I guess very few of us or none of us. Why? Because the audience, because the reader, because the listener have don't so much time. Everyone's time is so important. Everyone's time is very necessary for them, right? So don't consume the time of others unnecessarily. And how we can save the time of our listener, how we can save the time of our audience by cut short our thoughts, our communication into the specific facts, into the very conciseness. So conciseness means don't add unnecessary messages, unnecessary text, unnecessary information, or such information which is not relatable at all with your communication. Don't include such long paras in your communication. If you are a such guy who choose that path of the communication in which you are choosing so long paragraph to make yourself understood by another person, then sooner or later you will be the most ignorant guy, because many of the guy will think that you are consuming so much of time, right? So don't do that. Okay, so we have to understand this word, the conciseness. Convey your message into the brevity, with brevity only, without adding the unnecessary details. Right? As I mentioned you earlier, that today's time, the Gen Zs, the new generation, found themselves in a very hurry. Today, they are not like they are not like to watching the so long hour movies for the 2 hour or 3 hour. Today is a time when they are just scrolling the 30 seconds of the reels or the short videos on the YouTube, because they don't have so much time. Then we have to make our image as a good brand image through the communication. It is important for ourselves. Don't consume their time. Don't consume the time of our audience or our listeners, right? So please note it. Choose your message communication in a very concise manner. And the last one is the consideration, right? Another point for the communication is like we have to found the need of that communication. We have to found the answer of the question that what my listener or my audience will get after the complete of my communication, after the completing of my communication, what my listener will get, what my audience will get, right? So if my listeners, if my audience will not get any kind of benefit, will not get any kind of the consideration, then sorry, boss, again, you are into the trap and your communication will not be effective. If you are communicating about something which is so weird, so awkward, or not relatable to me at all, and it might be for me is a very time consumable thing, and I would like to stop you at the right moment, right? So please note that also. So 7 C's are done here. The first one is the completeness, and the second one is clearness. Third one is courtesy. Fourth one is correctness. Fifth one is concreteness. Sixth one is conciseness, and seventh one is consideration. So these are some things which might be very useful for you. Some kind of the elements these are which might be useful for you to make your communication so effective that will ultimately help you to make your image and make your dream into the reality and make your communication so powerful so that your image can be built up. Now, hmm, let me share with you the another slide of the communication on which for which we are today here. Okay. Now, let's make it in some more detail. When we were talking about the communication, I was discussed with you about the question. We don't have just to ask the question with ourselves or to the other self, but a powerful question. A question has the ability to change this world in a darker mode or into the sunrise mode. A powerful question can snatch the power of the ruling party of some very democratic country, right? And the powerful question has the ability to improve the current situation of the generation, right? So now let us we discuss. Now let us we see that how can a question be a powerful question, right? Few things which we are going to see in this slide, right? First one, it should stimulate the curiosity, right? You might be seeing some people, like I said earlier, when they are talking, many of the people in the audience just just amazed by their words, just amazed by their questions, right? So, what techniques such highly intellectual people involve in their communication while they are talking about some topic or while they are asking some good question, some powerful question? What thing help them? So, the first one is stimulate the curiosity, right? Stimulates the curiosity. How can you make your question so powerful? It should stimulate the curiosity. If you are talking in a manner which is not so interesting, which is not developing anything, which is not creating an essence of the listening to your listeners, then your communication is not so effective, and you must be attend some good seminar like this one on the powerful communication, right? So before asking any question, before starting your communication, you have to choose those words, you have to choose that style which is so organic and which should be so good that it should stimulate the curiosity to your listeners. Second thing, now another thing through which you can improve the power of your question and make your question so powerful. It should communicate the knowledge in subject. Sometime before, I was just going with my friend, and he told me like, let's move your car in the direction for some good hotel, for some good restaurant, and let's make some good dinner. And I was just thinking about the place in my mind, and I was just driving and move my car into that direction. And after the 20 kilometer, he told me in which direction you are heading. And I was told him like, in that direction, when we both were going at that time. So he told me, brother, we don't have so much time to go there. I was told you to go to some such decent place which might be fall 10 kilometer away, right? In that case, what happened? In that case, what happened? In this case, subject was not communicated properly. Subject is the place, not communicated properly by my friend. And due to this, we are just hanging around on the highway for unnecessary things, right? So, a powerful question must be it should communicate the knowledge in subject. Trust me, be a good listener. Being a good listener is not a very simple and easy task, right? And if we are just thinking about like these kind of seminars and these kind of the session and these kind of the subjects are not my cup of tea, then your dream is not going to be into the reality very soon, right? So, if we just want to reach our goal in very sooner times, so we have to improve our communication because we have to build our empire on the pillars of our team, on our team, right? And our team is the first audience to which we are communicating on the daily basis, right? So, these skills are very useful in that manner only, right? Another thing which is very useful to make our questions so powerful questions. It should generate the new ideas. Like I told you earlier, before some time, I met with a guy who was aged like 67 around, and I was literally so amazed by seeing his personality and his attitude. And whenever I just met with some guys like that guy, so I just go to them and ask, like, what is the thinking work behind such kind of a personality which he have? So he told me, like, at this age also, at this age even, I used to learn new things with the upcoming generation, with the new generation. And I was clicked. I was just connected this thought with another guy who was just age of around 75 when he was giving his interview to the interviewer, and we all know him as a superstar of the Bollywood, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. Once in an interview of Amitabh Bachchan, I was just listening to him, and he told, when interviewer asked, "Sir, your 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 workmates, your another co-actors who are at your age are not working at all. They are just sitting idle at their home and just keep relaxing. But you are into so competition. You are found yourself into the show competition. You compete with Shah Rukh Khan, you compete with Akshay Kumar, you compete with Sanjay Dutt, and now you compete with the upcoming new generation, and you are just setting the new benchmarks with the new generation celebrities and actors. What is the reason behind so energetic performance? You know what he told to the interviewer? Mr. Amitabh Bachchan says, "Ma'am, I found myself as a student of life. I think till I'm alive on this planet, I have to work, and for which I have to learn, and for which I have to listen, and for which I have to read. So I read, I learn, I listen every day. I learn every day. I learn every new thing. I learn the techniques from Mr. Vinod Khanna. I learn techniques from Mr. Rajesh Khanna. I learn technique from the Dilip Kumar. And I learn technique from Sanjay Dutt, Akshay and Shah Rukh also by seeing their performances. And now, whenever I get the time, I also used to sit with my grandchildren and ask them to teach me about the new gadgets and this new modern technology which is known as so-called artificial intelligence. So, till when I alive on this planet, I consider myself as a student of life, and I never stop learning. And this is my attitude which gives me the so energy to walk every day, to sleep every day, to wake up every day, to start my day, to end my day. And other co-actors who worked with Mr. Amitabh Bachchan are nowhere now. Like, yes, Mr. Dharmender also found himself on this strategy nowadays, but other co-actors are nowhere, right? So, this is the energy of Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, and due to this energy, due to this attitude, I must say, he just finished his product, and we saw him again in just a recent movie, I guess named is Goodbye. He creates some new benchmarks by delivering the many new good movies like Black, like Pa, like Nishabd. And he found every time a new person. Like it's like a removal of the layer over the onion, right? When Mr. Amitabh, like it is a perfect example I found nowadays. Perfect example because he is a very known personality and we can talk about him. That's why. So he found every time when he grabs some new project, when he compete for the audition, when he compete with the new talent, when he compete with new generation, he found every time a new Amitabh Bachchan inside him, and we are just amazed, like wow, he's doing so great at this age even. This is the energy. What is the attitude work behind this? His work on the new ideas. His work on the new ideas. See, a powerful communication comes from the powerful question, and powerful question come from your powerful thought, and powerful thought comes from your attitude, your vision about the life. It's not about any particular sector or the corporate world or anything. It is about you only. It is about the individual only. It is about those billions of the individual who live on this planet, right? So before being a good corporate leader, before being a good practitioner, before being a good corporate employee, we have to be a good human. We have to be a very effective human. We have to be a very powerful human. And for that, we have to make our communication so better, so powerful. Right? So, like, we have to generate the new ideas, we have to give the new direction. Like, we are agreeing on the one term that we are dealing now with the new generation. And if we are talking with the new generation in the old sense, they don't just want to listen about the question and questions only, problems and problems only. Right? See, today we are dealing with the social media, and social media gives you the every type of the information at the age which might be considered as not an adult by our law, right? But social media gives you the every information before attaining that adult age, right? So every person of this new generation has the information about those problems, those issues which we are dealing around. Everyone knows about that. But and sorry, and they don't want to listen about those issues and problems again and again by us. They don't want, but they want to hear about the solutions. They want to hear about the new direction. They want the creativity. Like for an example, and it is very relatable. For an example, there might be the very big reasons, very more reasons behind the inefficient work of the political party Congress. There might be many more reasons, but there is one reason too behind the failure of such party every time. And that is, which I observe, that in every election time, that in every election, they just talk about the issues and problems, but they don't talk about the practical solutions of those problems. They just blaming, they just creating the issues, they are just talking about the issues every time they are talking about the issues and problems, but they are not gives the new direction, but they are not gives the new solution which are so practical, which are so logical. I observe that one thing also, that they are not delivering the new ideas to the generation. And when they are just talking about the old problems every time when they are dealing with the election time, people are thinking they don't have any new idea. They don't have any new idea. That's why they are defeating. Like, there are many more reasons also, might be. But I observe this one too. So I am talking about this at right now. That's why I told that powerful communication and powerful question must have the essence, must have the spirit, must have the soul, which can give the new direction to our new generation, which can give the new ideas to our the generation. Because they don't have so much time, they are so engaging mentally, they are so occupied. Every kid in their 11th and 12th age, they just want to be a rich, they just want to achieve their dream, they just want to convert their dream into the reality. They don't have so much time to hear our nuisance, to hear our problems, to hear the problems which we are around, which we are surviving around. They don't have so much time. They are saying, if you have the solution, here to hear that. Otherwise, please don't consume my time. Please don't talk to me. Please stay away. They are talking in that manner. This is the attitude in which they are talking. Right? So, if you don't want to be a most ignored person, if you don't want to be a most old school guy, right? Then we can improve ourselves. And for that, like I also give you an example of Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, who at the age of even, I guess, is now 77 or 78, probably. Even at this age also, he is learning and learning. He's improving himself like a onion, like an onion. Whenever you remove the upper layer of onion, you found every time a new onion, right? So let's move to the another point that can be very useful to make a powerful question, and that is the scamper technique. Scamper technique. Every character of this word stand for some particular word. Scamper. S stand for substitute. Like if I'm asking about the question, if we are trying to improve our communication through our question, that then first we have to think about our question which we are going to put to the audience. First one, substitute. We have to try to find the answer of this question. Like, can we substitute our question before put the question to the audience? It means during the time of the making of question, during the time of framing the question, we have to use this technique, scamper technique. When we are framing our question, we have to ask with ourselves, like first one, substitute. Should I put my thought into the question, whatever comes to my mind, or should I substitute the words which I selected to frame my questions for framing the another question? You have to ask from yourself. You have to ask from yourself whether the question need to be substituted by the another question, or whether the words which I use to select to frame this question, those words should be substituted by another word. So during the framing of the question, I have to apply this technique. And if we are thinking like, what is in there asking the question, whatever comes to my mind, I'll just ask. Believe me, sooner or later, you will be a most ignored guy. Most ignored guy. If you are a guy who is not doing the self-analysis, who is not observing his word, then you will be a most ignored guy. Whether you are dealing with the new generation in your home, whether you are dealing with the new generation in your office, or whether you are dealing with anyone outside these two premises, like during the traveling and all. If you are not thinking before asking, before speaking, you will be a most ignored guy. And this thing will gives you a signal that you are not a good communicator. Right? So here we are to improve ourselves as a good communicator, and that's why I am just sharing this useful things and very secret things to you. So first one is substitute. Second one, combine and alter. Combine and alter. See, I told you earlier that at today's time, world becomes so fast. World like looking, revolving at the speed which is revolving earlier at that speed. But at the today's time, there is a generation who have no time for us. There is a generation who have no time for themselves also. They don't have time for themselves also. Like you can relate this thing to their relations also. If you have found some kind of new couple or new relation around you, and when you observe from from your third eye, when you observe them, you will found they don't have so much time. Their relation built so quickly and their relation destroyed so quickly. They don't have time. They don't have patience. They don't have patience, right? So on that basis, if you have some kind of a long questionnaire, and you have so many questions in that questionnaire, right? So you have to ask from yourself whether you need to combine and alter some 2 3 questions and make and frame a single question to save the listener's time, to save the audience time, right? So every time you have to make a focus on the saving of time of the listener and audience. Try to convey your communication in a very less and few words. In a very less and few words. Don't consume the another one time. Don't consume, because another one might don't have enough money to compete with you, but time is so precious for them. So they are very sincere, they are very serious how they are spending their time. So don't be a time eater for your listeners, right? And this thing will definitely improve you also as a good communicator. So 3 things which we learn in this is camper technique, substitute, and combine and alter. Okay, now the next one, modify. Before asking the question, you must read the question first or recall the question first in your mind first. Before asking the question, before put your question towards the audience or your listener, make a good self analysis about that question. Make a good self analysis and try to find the point and try to find the path where you need, if you need to modify the question, to modify the question. If you think that question which is framed yet is very perfect, then it's okay. Just go on, carry on. But if you think that this sounds not good, there must be some alteration or modification, then you must do that first before asking the question. Because a powerful question, a question is like a weapon. Once you throw it, you can't undo that. Right? Next one is put to other use. Before put your question towards other, you have to ask from yourself whether you can use this weapon, which is communication, which is question, whether you can use this question in this current situation with this guy in which you are falling into the conversation, or should you remain that question into your memory for now and ask later with some right guy or at some right place or at some right time for some other use, right? So don't be in hurry, don't be in rush to ask the questions so quickly, right? And before asking the question, just ask from yourself that should you use this question right now or should you use this question for the later stage. Next one is eliminate. Like I mentioned you earlier, you have to save the time of your listeners and respondents. So you have to eliminate those unnecessary questions which are not so relevant. Which are not so relevant. Like, see, what is the purpose of communication? What is the purpose of communication? What is the purpose of asking question? The purpose of question or the purpose of the communication to get something new, is to get something new direction, is to learn new thing, is to get something very useful or fruitful, right? And if you think that you are framing some questions mistakenly, which are not going to answer anything, which are not going to gives you anything, which are not going to give you any creative thing, any new thing, then you have to ask, should I still need to ask this question or should I need to eliminate this question? If possible, then eliminate the question and save the time of the listener. Next one. Before going to the next one, that is the reverse order, I would like to share uh, share a very comedy scene with you guys from a movie. I don't know the I don't remember the name of that movie now, but the scene was a guy who was doing a survey of some household ladies and the kids who born just in past few years back, and he knocked the door at a house and asked the question, how many children you have, ma'am? She said, three. Three children I have. And second question he asked, whether you get married, and he got slapped. You know why? Why he got slapped from that lady? He was not having any malicious intention at that time, but the sequence, the order he chose to ask the question from that household lady is wrong. The question which he should ask first, he asked on the later stage. Sometimes we are not destroyed our communication intentionally. We are not destroyed our communication intentionally, but we did that mistakenly by not observing the order which we are following to asking the questions, right? So this is the scamper technique. Let's move to the another thing in detail, that is called the active listening, which is playing the most important role for asking the good communication, for asking the good question and creating a good communication. Active listening. We are not talking about only listening. Like one day, my friend calling me, please come here. I want to meet you and share with you something. I saying, "Oh, okay, I'll be there in 15 minutes." And when I was there, he crying and crying and crying and told me that his girlfriend move away, his girlfriend go away, and he's facing the breakup. And actually, it is not the first time when I was listening him on this topic. That was so frequent in past few months. So I was not so interested to hear about what he is going to say about his girlfriend who just break up for the 15th time in 3 months, right? So I was just told him, okay, say what you want to say. And I was just scrolling and looking at my mobile screen for new messages, for the WhatsApp messages, or for the old messages too, which I was never interested to open. At that time, I opened those messages too, which I hardly believe that useful for me. What is happening here? For the sake of his tears, for the sake of his emotions, I was playing a very master character role as a good friend and saying, okay, tell me, bro, what is happening? And inside me, I was feeling like I know what he's going to say. Okay, so I'm found myself very less interested or not interested at all. And I was just listening for the sake of his tears and emotions. Is this called active listening? Is this called active listening? I don't think, right? So, what is happening here? If you don't have any interest to listen someone, if you don't have any interest to hear the emotion of your speaker, of your communicator, then just refuse. Don't fall yourself into the such false communication when you are absent at that time, right? So what points going to help you for active listening? What points going to help you? How to do active listening? First one, hearing the audience without interruption. Like I told you earlier, even a speaker don't do a one-side communication. Yeah, if it is not through any Zoom, right? But if it is online, no speaker would like to speak every time. They want to hear the audience too. And when you are into the communication and hear the audience, then hearing your audience or speaker without interruption, right? Don't interrupt them. Hear them properly, right? So second one, attentive body language. I guess I uh, I guess this is very common thing which we know from the very early ages. Attentive body language. If we are not representing our attention towards the speaker through our body language, then the speaker will lose his energy and the essence of the communication will lose somewhere in that time, right? So it is our responsibility as a respondent, as a listener. Then if we fall into the conversation with some guy, whether they belongs to our previous experience or our field, then we have to show the body language with very attention, right? We shouldn't lose our attention, because it gives the signal to the speaker that the listener are not so active, listeners are not so engaged, and the essence of the communication will be lost somewhere in the middle. Now, next one, listening for the feelings, values, and assumptions. Feelings, values, and assumptions. Sometimes we found ourselves into the dilemma. we found ourselves into the conversation in which we hardly have any interest or any previous experience. In such case, in such case, we think like, when will this communication will end? When will this communication going to be an end? Right? So, do you think that this will be called a active listening? Answer is no. Right? So we have to listen for the feelings, values, and assumptions for our speakers. If we are not listening actively, then we can never understand the empathy of our speaker. What our speaker trying to communicate, what our speaker trying to convince, what a speaker trying to convey. Right? So we have to listening for their assumptions too sometimes. Right? So as I mentioned earlier, for being a good communicator, we have to be a good listener too. And that is a first step also, right? And you cannot be a good listener if you are not actively engaged yourself into that conversation. Now, next, let's discuss to the next point, that is validating that you understood correctly. If you are speaking something, if you are saying something, then it is very important. It is very, very much important for you as a speaker, as a listener, to correct what you hear. Sometime we hear something which is so weird and which is not so obvious for us. Sometime we hear something which is not practical feasible to us, which is not related to our previous experience. Then at this moment we must make sure ourselves, by validating uh, our words which we are listening. Am I listening this correctly? Am I understanding this correctly? Right? So validate that you understood correctly. If you misinterpret something which you hear for the first time, very first time, then you might lose the credibility of your speaker. Right? And the last one, as I told you earlier, that most of the time, many of the times, sometimes we fall into the conversation. Like, for an example, sometime before, I just moved to the another state and I was waiting on the airport. And the waiting area, one guy was just sitting behind me and starting the conversation, some related topic. And I know that there is a waiting time for another 1 hour. And I was just thinking, like, this man starting the conversation, okay. And once he started, it is for the relatable topic. And sooner I realized that I don't have any other option but to listen him for another 1 hour. Right? So I was just being myself mentally prepared, because I was gaining some new experience and I was just being myself mentally prepared that I have to spend my another 1 hour or another few minutes with a guy who having a experience which is not relatable for me, or which is very unique for me, or which is very sounds interesting to me. So I being mentally prepared, then I was like sitting, and my body language was accordingly changed. Right. So these are a few points which we have to be considered for the active listening, which is so important if we are going to ask some questions for the betterment of our communication, right? Okay. When we found ourselves into the group discussion sometimes, then sometimes we found in the dilemma that whether I have to interrupt other, whether I'll sound as a very rude guy and bad at communication. Then there are few points which I like to mention here, which I like to told you uh, for how to interrupt others while communicating with them, right? The first one, you can use this word, that's good. That's good. If you are trying, see, uh, interrupt is like something like that. Um, something is like that. Someone is driving the bus, and you are just going to catch that during when the bus is at the speed of the 30 or 40, right? So, interrupt someone during the communication. Highlight this word, interrupt, right? Interrupt is like you are catching the bus at the speed of the 30 or 40, like which is already move around, right? So during this, you have to enter with some kind of polite phrases or the agreement phrases that another one who is the speaker to our next bench should not feeling offense, right? So you can use these words to interrupt others very in a skillful way, right? Like that's good. However, so uh, it might be used when you are in the dilemma, like whether you can agree or not agree with whatever the speaker is going to say, then you can use this word, that's good. However however, right? And second thing, if you are feeling that whatever is a speaker saying is perfect, is good, is okay, but you also have some few suggestions which can improve the communication or which can lead to the solution of the probable issues or problems, right? So you can interrupt the other in a way by saying, I agree with you, but in addition, I would also like to add my suggestion in this way, right? Apart from that, apart from that, if you are dealing with a guy who throwing some good idea, right, or suggestion for some kind of the probable solution of the probable problem, right? So you can mention your feeling like, that's a great idea, which you mentioned, that's a great idea, but there is some kind of problem, but you forget, but I suggest, like that, right? So you can interrupt them in this way also. Okay. And fourth one, like, I'm glad that you have brought about this. If when you can use this phrase, if you are fall yourself into the conversation in which you found yourself very excited about the solution, you found yourself excited in the conversation, and you found yourself um, as a thankful to the speaker, right? Then you can use this phrase that I'm glad that you have brought about this, and you found the probable solution for the problem for which we are concerned about past few years or few months, like blah 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 and all. In fact, we can also use this, right? So you are connecting an agreement with the speaker, and you can lead the conversation from here, right? Okay. When sometimes when the group discussion or the debate uh, in a manner going like everyone is putting some kind of suggestion, like for the trip and for some kind of the problem they are putting just their suggestion, then you can add something, like, or you can highlight something. If you want to highlight something, then you can use this phrase. Okay, but another important point which you might which you might forget, right? So you can highlight your point also, right? So if you want to highlight whatever is your suggestion, whatever is your plan, then you can use this technique to interrupt them skillfully, right? Let's move to the another point. Okay, if you think like the speaker who speaks in the group discussion or who speaks with you or in the between of some audience, like, okay, so if the speaker, if the communicator communicates something, some kind of a word or some kind of sentence or some kind of the phrase which needs more elaboration, which you think that should be, do that, right? So you can interrupt them successfully by saying that this point needs the further elaboration, right? So you can raise the hand, you can raise your voice, like, sir, I guess this point needs the further elaboration because the people around us are not going to understand this as it is, right? Okay. And the last one, right? The last one, if you are agree, if you are agree with the speaker, if you are agree with the communicator, right? But you want to add something, right? So you can, like I told you earlier also, like in I agree, but in addition, right? You can also use this last phrase apart from that also, like very correct, but I would like to add that, right? So you can also interrupt your speaker with this phrase also, right? Okay. Now, uh, it doesn't need that communication will always is a table game between the two guys only. It might be between the many of the guys as a group discussion also. So for a successful discussion, you should be a team player. Always remember, don't try to be a leader, don't try to be a villain, or don't try to be a superhero in any conversation. Be a contributor, be a team player, right? That is the good, that is the essence of the good communication, right? Don't highlight yourself too much, don't highlight your point too much, right? So always remember, be a team player, right? Second thing, initiative. If you have any topic on which a few guys or your friends or your colleagues might be fall into the conversation, and if you think that idea is a very good idea, then you must take a initiative to start that conversation or that discussion, right? And as I told you earlier in our session, that today's world, people don't have so much time to speak again and again and again about the problems only, right? They want some new ideas, they want some creativity, they want out of box thinking, right? So please keep this in your mind. After that, I like we discussed earlier, listening is a very powerful tool if you want to be a good communicator. If you don't have the habit of the listening, trust me, you are not going to be a good communicator unless you improve this skill, improve this tool, right? So Be a good listener first, then you can communicate very easily. After that, do not get the personal or emotional or touchy with someone. Right? See, when you fall into the conversation or the discussion, that should be at that time only, and that should be very professional and very fruitful and useful. Right? Don't take it as a personal and emotional. Don't be so emotional. Like when I travel in a public transport once, so I observed that two guys were found themselves into the hustle and fight with each other. And when I try to focus on the subject on which they are fighting, it was like a favorism and defavorism of a one political party, right? So even the political party doesn't have any idea, like for their namesake, two guys were fighting in a metro, right? So they don't have any idea, but two guys, like in a morning schedule, they were just fighting with each other on the namesake of one political party. So do not get personal, right, or emotional. If you have valid point, then just put that point into the conversation, otherwise just stay away, right? Okay, do not dominate the discussion. As I told you earlier, be a good team player. Don't highlight your point and don't highlight yourself too much, right? Just put your point on the table and do not dominate the discussion at all, right? Let it gives in the hand of the respondent what they get from your mind, right? Don't try to dominate into their mind, right? Next one, do not deviate from the topic. Understand the essence of the communication, understand the topic of the communication, and do not deviate yourself from the topic. Right? That is not the art of the good communicator. Right? Be on the topic, specify the topic, and just talk on the topic. Right? And the last one, for the slide and for the session today also, do not argue or shout, right? See, if you are shouting, if you are showing your anger, if you are arguing with someone again and again and again, then you are showing your weakness. You are showing that you are not good in the communication. You are showing that you are not a good listener, right? And it will degrade your image, right? So just understand the feeling of the listener, just understand the ability of the listener, and try to communicate your point at that level only, in which your listener can understand that point. But anyhow, don't shout or argue with your respondent, right? So that is all from my side, and I'm just taking some few messages from the chat box and try to answer some these questions. Okay, so okay, first one asked by Sambit ji. How have we handled a situation in the workplace where there was a miscommunication? Okay, discuss a situation where we had to adjust our communication style to deal with a crisis. Okay. How do you ensure effective communication in the remote or the virtual teams? How do you approach interdepartmental communication to ensure the collaboration and understanding? How we had to communicate bad news, right, to our team or client? How do we leverage the social media and our digital platform for professional communication? Okay, these 5 to 6 questions. Okay, I try to answer all of these questions, Sambiji. So like, okay, okay, fine. So let's take it from the first one. How have we handled a situation in the workplace where there was a miscommunication? See, like I told you earlier, be a good team player. Team player is like a good communicator, right? So, as a contributor, right? So, if you are assured that you observe some kind of the miscommunication and that can lead to be a false result, right? Then, as a good team player, as a good contributor to the good communicator, right? You have to highlight those situation. You have to highlight those miscommunicating point without fear, right? But still, you have to control your emotions. Sometimes, the speaker, the communicator who is going to communicate something very important, right? So it depends on the things like what kind of the things are considered as a miscommunication. As a miscommunication, like if I'm talking about, um I wear I wear something like a gray color, right? But my speaker or my team leader called my name and and uh, and denote me like as a black shirt and saying the black shirt. So these kind of the minute miss things, right? These kind of the things can be ignored, right? So when you are facing a situation, when you find something a miscommunication happen, right, then you have to make a good analysis, like whether this miscommunication going to interrupt our the result, right, going to lead a false result, right? If you think like this type of miscommunication can be ignored, right, then surely you can just ignore. But if you think that this kind of miscommunication can lead to a very bad result or the false result or the negative result, then yes, it is your responsibility as a listener and as a respondent that you have to highlight such miscommunication, but in a polite manner. Do not argue and do not get personal, right? And second one, okay, situation. Okay, you want a situation where we had to adjust our communication style to deal with a crisis. Like I mentioned earlier in previous question, like first one, you have to see with whom you are talking to. Like you have to analyze with whom you are dealing with, right? Sometime as a speaker, sometime when I attend the seminar, I dealing with some candidates who are not so good like mentally, right? They are not in a category of the normal situation. They are called themselves as an abnormal person, right? So they just come to me and ask a very basic question like, but I considered myself as a as a student. So this situation, I think, uh, it's for the test of my patience, right? It's for the test of my communication. So I just mold my style. I'll just change my communication style, and I first analysis the ability, the mental ability, and the communication ability of the communicator, of the listener or the respondent, right? So first I try to analysis, I observe my listener, and then I mold my communication style according to the situation, right? So if you are dealing with like some of the crisis which is going to happen in your office, then we have to first find out the root of that crisis. And second thing, you have to find what is the your probable contribution for that communication, which can like as a damage control situation, right? So you have to analyze the situation first, right? Then you have to analyze like what kind of information you have which can be used as a damage control and for the crisis control, right? So these are the things. And the next one, like how you ask, how do you ensure the effective communication in remote or the virtual teams? Yes, like it is a one of the common problem in today era, because many of the organization are adopting this kind of the culture when they are allow their employees to work remotely, right? So they are trying to like proper manner, like for their attendance, for their work report and all, right? For the communication in a remote or virtual team, you can ask for the feedback. You can ask what they get understand by your communication. You can ask for their suggestions, on the probable solution on the or probable problems which you might get face, right? And by their answer you can get the result, whether they are communicating effectively, whether they are understand your things effectively or not, right? Okay. Next one, like how do you approach interdepartmental communication to ensure the collaboration and understanding? Okay. See, like it depends on the situation to situation, but in a general sense, I can say that in every department, in every organization, there is a department leader, right? There is a department leader who have the responsibility to get the work from their employees, from their own department employee, right? So as the if you are seeing as a communicator, you have to communicate with the department leader only, right? And you can get the feedback from the every department leader, and the department leader at their hand can ask the suggestion and the feedback from his team or her team, which work on the practical ground, right? Without feedback, like what is the purpose of our communication? Our purpose of the communication is a two-way communication and understanding of the thought, which transfer from the one mindset to the another brain, right? If we are doing the one side communication only, then it doesn't going to show effective communication, right? So for this effective communication, you have to ask the feedback and suggestion from your team also. Once they involve themselves as a suggester, as a feedback and all, they will found themselves as an interested guy in that solution, because this is probably their solution too, right? Next one, like how we had to communicate the bad news, okay, to our team or the client. Okay, like this is something which cannot be answered so generally, but yeah, okay, you ask, then I'll tell you. If you realize that something bad happened into the organization and you have the responsibility to communicate such information to your team or your client, right? Then first of all, it's like it's like the melted iron, right? Like we saw in many of the factories of the molding factories, molding iron factories, right? So it is the melted iron, right? And before pour the melted iron, you have to prepare the ground on which you have to pour that, right? So if you want to communicate the bad news, you have to prepare the ground first, right? First of all, you have to prepare the environment in a very positive manner, right? For that you can choose the right time. Obviously, if I am calling you at night or at the early morning at 3 a.m or 4 a.m, then every ring of that cell phone will be called as like a very dangerous alarm situation, right? So first of all, you have to manage. You have to manage the things. So you have to plan your things, right? So you have to analysis. You have to make a good self analysis, and for that you can choose the right time, right? You can choose the right time. Second thing, you can choose the right words. Third thing, you can say like you have a full support even this going to happen after that. um like for an example, I must say, for an example, there was a guy who borrowed the motorcycle of his friend. And when he was traveling, the policeman was catch him and cut the challan and just seize the bike, right? So the friend called the bike owner and told him, okay, everything is perfect, everything is fine. Your bike was so fine, so smooth and nice, and everything is good. But there is some situation you cannot get back it so soon because there is some challan. Like there is a policeman who caught your bike. Might be your paper was not with me, but might be with you at your home, right? So I'll take the responsibility. I'll get it back to you, and don't worry. I'll face whatever going to happen, right? So this thing, I'll not say this thing will control everything, but this thing will be um, will be treated as a damage control thing, right? See, once you are communicating something bad, the people who listen that bad news, the people who hear that bad news, they just want the support. They just want the emotional support. They just want the practical support, right? So some few things you can ask from them, right? And further, that depends on the situation to situation, sir. Okay. I guess there is a okay. Okay. So questions are done. Somebody,
Now I would like to invite CA Dinesh Jain, Chairman, Mandsaur branch, to give his vote of thanks.
सर बहुत ही बढ़िया आपने कम्युनिकेशन के बारे में मतलब बहुत ही अच्छे शब्दों में सरल शब्दों में आपने एक्सप्लेन किया। मैं हमारी मंदसौर ब्रांच के सेक्रेटरी सीए विकास भंडारी से अनुरोध कर रहा हूं वोट ऑफ थैंक्स के लिए। सीए विकास भंडारी।
thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
सीए मयंक जैन, मैं अनुरोध कर रहा हूँ सीए मयंक जैन
Sir,
वोट ऑफ थैंक्स।
thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It has been such an honor to be part of this wonderful webcast on power of communication for chartered accountants organized by the Professional Skills Enrichment Committee ICI. On behalf of the Professional Skill Enrichment Committee ICI, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our speaker CM Mohit Gupta ji for his enlightening session. Sincere thanks to the event enabler from the Mandsaur branch of the CIRC of the ICI who enabled the webcast throughout. A wide round of applause and thanks to the organizer, Professional Skill Enrichment Committee ICI, our today's speaker CM Mohit Ji Gupta, and our other stakeholders made the webcast a memorable one. Finally, we would like to thank all of you present here and helping us making this webcast a grand success. Thank you one and all. Thank you, sir.
सर आज हमारा दिनेश जी की शादी की सालगिरह भी है तो उनको भी शुभकामनाएं देना साहब।
Uh,
Yeah, congratulations, Dinesh sir.
थैंक